And that is why it creates the either or. Because if it could go anywhere in between the notches, you would not be able to say either or. It's what I was saying about the 0.41, 0.411, 0.4112. It's almost like you can think of going infinitely large, but you cannot think of going infinitely small. And the only way to manifest either or, because if you're gonna, when I was talking about logos, the word logos being connected to both word and logic, is that I can say when I'm looking at my keyboard, I can say there's a Q key, there's a W key, there's an E key, an R key, and a T key, a key for each one of these letters. So, and if I put my finger down between the Q and the W, since the space between the Q and the W is too small for my finger, what quantum physics is telling us is that when I put that finger on that keyboard, if I aim for the center, let's say that I'm undecided, that the goddess that I was talking about before, about am I going left or right, is undecided, and that's my finger, and it's going to, and oh, am I going to type the Q or am I going to type the W? And the two keys on the keyboard are next to each other, but the space between the Q key and the W key is too small. If my finger presses, well, quantum physics, which quantizes, makes Q a quantity that is distinguishable, logos, from W, which is another quantity, if you will. If I put my finger down by some micromillimeter, the input that's going to go into the computer either is the first input. I mean, if I keep the finger down, it's going to write QWW, like it's a pinball on tilt. But it's either gonna give me a Q and then a W and then another W and then a Q, etc. if I keep it pressed down. But the signals that are gonna go into it doesn't create a new letter. It's either gonna be a Q or a W. It's gonna give me a string of Q's and W's if I keep my finger down, because as the micro measurement of my finger trembles, the circuits in the motherboard are going to interpret it, are going to switch. One instant it's going to give me a Q, another instant it's going to give me a W. But whereas on a ruler, as we get better and better, we can measure 1/4 inches, 1/8 of inches, 1/16 of inches, 32nd of inches, 64ths of inches, etc., etc., etc. It goes binary. Quantum goes binary. It's never going to create a fraction that's a letter that's neither a Q or a W. It's going to give me a Q or it's going to give me a W. That's where it creates an either or. And what I'm trying to say is that by looking at quantum physics, and subatomic particles. And this is not because our microscopes, and this is beyond microscopes, this is so small that you can't even imagine it. It's not because they're too small to measure the space between the Q and the W. When you're talking about the orbits of subatomic particles around the nucleus, the space between the Q orbit and W orbit is so huge that it's like, 100 keyboards separate the letter Q from the letter W. So we can measure the distance. The distance is humongous. So it's not that we cannot measure it. It's that even if you take that keyboard and you stretch it apart so far that there is 1 mile between the Q, the letter Q and the letter W, the choice of the universe is going to switch. Sometimes it's going to say Q, sometimes it's going to say W. But never in between. And that is where the subatomic particles are giving us a clear and distinct manifestation of no in between, distinguishing either or.